Hey folks, Ghost Cat Cooks here. So today we have a marinated tomato salad, and this is my first recipe, so kind of bear with me. I'm getting my feeling for what's going on, but it's a simple recipe. It's an old family favorite. My mother was telling me how my grandmother on my dad's side was really good at making marinated salads, and this was one that I liked. We had a garden when I was younger, so we were able to pick fresh tomatoes and fresh parsley and fresh onions, and it really ended up being a good salad. So I've made it quite a few times throughout my life, and this isn't the original recipe because I don't know if it was ever written down, but this is my version of it, and it's pretty close. So I'll show you what we're using today. So this is the main ingredient. Let's see if I can get it to show better. And if you can read down here, it says Campari. So that's the type of tomato that I buy, and they say sweet. You can also, if those are too expensive, you can also buy cherry tomatoes if those happen to be on sale. But I prefer these. They're vine ripe, and they're the closest thing to fresh grown garden tomatoes that I can find in the store regularly. But these were $4.99 a piece just for this little bit. It says 1 pound. So it can get quite expensive, So then we're using a red onion or a purple onion, if you prefer to call it that. We have some flat leaf Italian parsley, and the flat leaf compared to the curly leaf, the flat leaf has more flavor to it. That's basically the big difference. So if you're using it in a recipe and you want that flavor, this is a good one to use. The curly leaf is a good replacement. I feel free to use either one. And then green onions, that's not in the original recipe, but I just like them as a little added garnish over the top. And then another thing not in the original recipe is blue cheese. And I found that that's really good sprinkled over the top after the salad's done, just as a little topper. We'll also use some olive oil, extra virgin. The best flavor possible is what we need. Apple cider vinegar. You can use other vinegars, but this is the one I like the best, plus it's the healthiest. And then you put in a little basil, little oregano, little black pepper, salt, and I think that's it. So let me change camera positions, and we'll get started on putting all this together. So I started these tomatoes. We're using 2 containers, so that's 2 pounds. And what I want to say before I start all this is my cooking, I don't really follow amounts, but I know that some of you out there would like me to show amounts so you can get some ballpark on what we're talking about. But I cook everything to taste. So, if there's not enough salt, of course you add more. If there's too much, you put in less. But everything is to taste. If you don't like blue cheese, then don't put it in there. If you want less parsley, then use less parsley. If you want more tomato, then use more tomato. You can do anything you want. You can add cucumber in here if you want. So I'll try to give amounts, and just realize that you can always comment and ask me a question, and I'll try my best to get back to you with the proper information. But so anyway, that said, what we do is, let me get back here, is take, of course, the stems off and get rid of those. So go ahead and do that real quick here. Got tomatoes running away. So then what you need to do is decore them. And what I do is just kind of come in and use a little paring knife and make your little cone around the core so you're not taking out too much flesh. Sometimes there'll be a little light spot down in there that you'll need to go a little deeper to get. But go around, be careful. Knives are sharp. You see how I'm holding the knife? I'm not holding back here on the handle because then there's too much play in the knife. I'm holding it up here, on the blade itself, and you get better control. So go around, and always be careful of the sharp end of the knife. So I'll do this last one here on camera, and then I'll show you what we're looking at, nice and juicy. So we'll prep all the tomatoes up like that, and I will be right back. So all the tomatoes are now washed and cored. They all kind of look like that now. So time to dice. So again, when you're holding a knife, hold the blade, you know, right where the handle and the blade meet, and that gives you the best control. If you notice, I'm using a serrated edge, because on the tomato skins, it ends up, you know, cutting a lot better through the skins. But as long as you have a sharp knife, these skins shouldn't be too bad. So I'll move these guys over, get some room on the cutting board, wipe up some of this crumbs from the stems. So we want kind of a large dice on this. So what I usually do is once that way, put the halves back together, once that way. We'll do these this way. So 3 cuts, what's that make? 8 pieces. And we'll put that in this bowl. There, we're in frame. So we'll put that in the bowl. Leave that off camera. So, see here I'm doing the halves separate. So you're basically just trying to get this done as easy as possible. See that one, I'm holding the pieces together a little more. It's all in how you feel comfortable doing it. Go at your own speed. Cut them how you want. So let me finish that up and I'll be right back. One thing I did want to point out is these smaller tomatoes, you know, I'm only cutting these twice, because if you cut them too small, then they end up just disappearing when they marinate. So they should be about 1 inch, you know. I like also to make a couple different sizes so it'll seem more chunky when it's put together after it's marinated. Because you know, these will break down a little bit. So we have the tomatoes in the bowl now. They're such a pretty red color. So now we are on to the onion. And you can use any type of onion, you know, yellow, white, red, purple. This is how I prepare onions. You cut off the stem end, and then you struggle with this layer. You know, and this is just a difficult job sometimes, no matter what. You know, this is where you need your fingernails. Make the best of it. One way I found it to cheat is sometimes if you run it under water to wet this dry skin down, it'll come out easier. Sometimes not. You just have to play with it, and you know, I always say if it doesn't work the first time, cuss at it, and then go from there. That's just a joke. But so, and cut off the root, you know, flush, because the root will hold all the layers of the onion together. And you can see how I'm kind of using the blade to shave off some of that stuff that is hard to get up. So the onion's peeled. Let me get this cleaned up. So this, you know, we judge by the amount of tomatoes, you know, that we have in the bowl. There's 2 pounds. We're just kind of eyeballing it to the volume. So I'm going to cut this onion. It's not exactly on the half mark. There's a smaller side and a bigger side. So I'm going to use this smaller side. Set the big one over there. So the onions, you kind of like in long strips. So what I'm going to do is take this off. See how this layer here, it's thick here and thick there, but then real thin in the center. If you keep that thin part, that's going to be real tough. It's not going to marinate and get any softer. So I cut that thin part out. We'll throw that away. So these, I would like to leave them, you know, long strips. And what we're doing is slicing them relatively thin so they can marinate nice. So let's use this piece. So I'm going to cut that right in half. That way you can see, you know, so that's a good length of a piece. Put these in the bowl, kind of break them up a little bit. This one I'm just going to chop up since we have the other ones in nice pieces. Well, it doesn't matter so much on these. This one we'll chop up. Now here we're getting kind of thin, so I'll stop there. And these can all go in there. Let me clean this mess up. So now we have the red onions and the tomatoes. You can kind of see how the proportions are in there. There's some chunks that we need to break up too. But you can see about the relationship between the onions and the tomatoes. So now we're looking at the Italian parsley. So I'll rinse this off. Now, Italian parsley, you know, it's grown in sand, and a lot of times the sand will be caught up on the leaves and stuff, so that we definitely have to wash those really well, shake them off. So then, what I like to do is, you know, just leave it in the bunch, and you know, hold the knife up where I was telling you on the blade, and when you hold stuff to chop, don't stick your fingers out like this because, you know, they're sticking out there to get cut off. Fold them in a little bit when you hold, and it won't be such a easy way to cut your fingertips. So what we do here is, you know, we put the knife down and then we go like this, and if you can hear it and see it, the tip never really leaves the cutting board, and my hand is going like in a circular motion. So you go down and you cut and you come up and back, and then down and cut and up and back. So like that. So that's all we do. And then what you're doing is basically just feeding this in. You know, you always keep the same thing going, and you see how I'm moving my fingers back. You can fold all the stuff, you know, so it makes a nice package. And then, you know, get your speed up and have at it. You know, so we're basically just trying to mince this. There can be some big pieces. We're not worried about any stems or anything like that because most of this is leaves up on top. Doesn't have to be all the same size. But we do want a bunch of parsley. Parsley is one of the main ingredients. Actually, they're all kind of main ingredients. And then looking through, you know, there's some bigger pieces that I'm just chopping up. But what's that, about a cup and a half or 2 cups? It's pretty much the whole bundle of parsley. Chop off some of these extra ones on the side here. So pretty much a bunch of parsley. So we'll get that put in the bowl just a minute. So now we have the parsley in there. I'll kind of stir this together so you can see the relationship of how much of everything's in there. So as you see, there's quite a bit of parsley. So now let's start doing the marinade part. So I usually just do it right into the bowl. Open up the olive oil. So with this, I usually don't measure, but today I will for you guys. So that's 1 tablespoon 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons of the Vigo olive oil, cold pressed extra virgin, all the good flavor. So then let's go over here to the apple cider vinegar. It says with the mother. That's the nutritional part. Unpasteurized, so everything's still alive in there. Organic, but this is my favorite brand. There's a lot of other brands, but it's the one with the sediment on the bottom. You can see how there's the sediment in there. So you be sure to shake it up so you get all the goodies. And this one you're going to have to, mess with, but we'll start off today with 2 tablespoons. I'm not sure if that's enough. We'll come back later when we taste it. So here we have some basil, dried. You can put fresh in. And I'm just putting, I don't know, 1/4 teaspoon, a couple little shakes. And then oregano. You don't want those too strong of flavors in there. So regular black pepper. This is fine ground. And this, you want to put a fair amount. You can kind of see how I'm shaking it on there. That should be a mostly predominant flavor. And then, of course, salt. I use the Himalayan pink here. Down here it's so humid, I got to shake it up so it breaks it. So, and then this is, again, to taste. If I remember right, a fair amount of salt goes in here. And this is, if my mom's watching, this is my version of this recipe. It's not grandma's, not Nana's. So here I am mixing it up, getting the stuff all together. Okay, that should be good. Grab a spoon. Now what I want to do here is grab some of the juice down the bottom, just a touch, and taste it. Make sure there's enough salt, because that's got to balance. Now it feels like I can put in another, let's go a 1/2 tablespoon. The olive oil, let's go another 1/2 or 2/3, something like that. So the flavor that I'm looking for is just a little salt flavor in there to, balance it out. I like tomatoes with a little salt on them. Some people eat sugar, but I like the salty tomatoes. And the vinegar should kind of stand out a little bit. It should be tart, not vinegary and not too bland, but it should have a little pop with the vinegar, and it should be a little tart. And what I found is, as it sits, it's always better the next day with stuff like this. As it sits and marinates, it'll soak up some of the vinegar and some of the salt flavor. So you may need to either add more or just add a little more in the beginning once you figure out, how much you need. But so anyway, this, I think, as long as the marinade flavor is good, yeah, I think that's pretty good. So this is the salad. Let me put it in a bowl and we'll get a good picture of it. So you see I got it in the bowl there. And now I'm taking these green onions. This is just a garnish, just to go on top, add a little more green to it. So again, you got the holding the knife part. And I'm just doing a few of these. Looks like that's a good amount. Sprinkle it over the top. With all that parsley, you know, it doesn't show up too much. Let me get this cleaned up. So here it is, folks. Marinated tomato salad. Let's see if I can push it back there in the light. Oh yeah, look at that. Go figure. Put it under the light, you get more light on it. So there we are. It's a good salad for the summer. You know, we used to eat this in the hot summer, and my mom would make just like a hamburger patty with no bun, and that would be our meal for the evening. Light and refreshing and healthy. I'll be right back. So the one last thing is crumbled Danish blue cheese. This is the Publix brand, because everything's so expensive nowadays. This is what normal people can afford. So what I like is to sprinkle this on the salad itself. And this is just my own little twist. So what I'm going to do is take some of this and put it into the bowl. Put that on the side. And this is my little twist, is little blue cheese crumbles on the top. Nice big one in the center. And that just adds a little more depth, a little bit of protein, and just one more layer of flavor. So that's the finished product, folks. Marinated tomato salad. So thanks. I had fun doing this first video. I'll be trying to put one out every week. There may be a little hiccup here or there, but thank you very much for joining me. Stop back as often as you want. Like I said before, if you got any questions, add them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you again. Have a beautiful day. Ghost Cat Cooks.